He wanted to cancel me. I saw my career flash before my eyes as I was discussing pineapple with Olin Kreutz.
Leftovers of a Paisano's deep dish butter crust for lunch at my house, including pineapple.
Of course.
Pineapple and sausage on the pizza. Like
no
I like
onion?
To roll. No onion this time. Didn't want it to bleed over to the wife's half.
But you will put onion and pineapple on the same pizza?
Happily. Aggressively.
Ugh.
Aggressively.
That flavor profile makes no sense to me. But again, I don't food shame.
It sounds like you're pretty close to it right now.
Frankly. I'm just... Feel free to text 312-644-6767. Is there a scenario you can envision where onion and pineapple should go together?
Can't do it.
I can't think of one.
Yeah.
But
well.
Yeah. It's interesting. What is not particularly interesting.
I was wondering what we're going to do. I was thinking about it. I was almost dead. I'd rather be food shamed than dissect this particular moment in the Cubs build at this point.
It's
but we must.
It's not in our contract. We could just ignore them. And they're playing like they deserve to be ignored. They've lost 10 straight games. For anyone who doesn't know, who wants the big picture, the Cubs lose again today to the Padres, though it was progress speaks. They did not get blown out. They only lost today's game by 2 runs. So they have now lost a league-leading 10 consecutive games. They are a paltry 11-24 at the not-so-friendly confines of Wrigley Field. They are 13 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals in the National League Central. They are tied with the abysmal, at one point we thought they were tanking and going to be the worst team in the history of the sport, Cincinnati Reds, at 23-40. And only 3 teams in the sport have more losses than the Cubs. That would be the Nationals, the A's, and the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, just awful. They're 11-24 at home. 11-24 at Wrigley. Only Oakland is worse at 7-23. It's a terrible, terrible moment. It's a disaster of a moment. And in that 10-game losing streak, Danny, they've been outscored now 67-19. It's a negative 48 run differential in the last 10 games at this point.
And if you're wondering why this feels longer than just a brutal start to a brutal season, it's because it has been. The Cubs, in their last 162 games, dating back to last year, this is from Gordon Wittenmeyer, 58 wins. 58 wins. It would be their worst ever 162-game season if you went back and said, all right, we're 58 and 104. It would be the single worst 162-game single season in the 147-year history of the Chicago Cubs. So while we are not that far removed from the greatest 5-year stretch in the history of the Cubs, we are quite literally in the worst 1-year stretch in the history of the Cubs. And when you follow up unprecedented greatness with unprecedented incompetence, you're going that is a formula for apathy. That's what's happened. How can you expect Cubs fans, not you, Matt Spiegel, but anybody, how can anyone expect Cubs fans to really, truly care day in, day out about the result or the product when you've recently experienced that much good and now you're experiencing this much bad?
You can't. You can't expect them to care on the daily about the result of the product. You're expecting and hoping for them to care about, about the harbingers of hope. There's supposed to be more harbingers of hope. And that's what makes this moment so ugly and makes this time so ugly, because the home losses are so bad. So you don't just have like sunny, happy, winning Wrigley Field to mask just how much they're getting their ass kicked around the league. They're getting their butt kicked at home. But on the big league level, Marcus Stroman is hurt. Seiya Suzuki is hurt. The kids who are here, Caleb Killian was pressing last night, had no control. That is not his game. Keegan Thompson in his last 2 starts is 3 2/3 innings with 10 earned runs given up. Like, there's supposed to be emblems of what you're about. But the truth is that the middle-aged tryouts are not going so well, other than Patrick Wisdom. And I think Patrick Wisdom's a keeper. But Frank Schwindel's your leader in RBIs at 33. But his OPS is under 700. And you're convinced now at this point, Frank's not a piece for the future. You're convinced Rafael Ortega is not a piece. Michael Hermosillo is not. They already gave up on Clint Frazier. So those middle-aged tryouts aren't here. And the kids' tryouts are a mixed bag. The best thing has been Christopher Morel with a couple more hits today. Out of nowhere.
It's nice to see him bounce back, though, because he had a rough couple of games. And,
absolutely.
And then he's had a nice couple of games back-to-back. And so, a kid who is not looking like, still very early, obviously, but not looking like flash in the pan, right? The ability to adjust to the adjustments and then adjust to the adjustments of the adjustments. Like, he's looking like he's going to stick and be a success story of the season.
I think so. I think
and
very
Nico
possibly.
Horner, also. Nico Horner.
And Nico
Solid.
Horner, but I like Nico at the plate an awful lot, but the overall numbers aren't super impressive. And he's an OPS under 700 right now. The batting average is up there, and I think he's capable of a lot more than that. I like the at bats and I like what he does, but it's hard to point at that. You're looking at Ian Happ. Your best player by far is Wilson Contreras, who's probably on the way out.
Definitely on the way out.
And There's just this was going to be a brutal, tough sell for Jed Hoyer and Cubs brass anyway, because people don't want to hear it. People don't want to hear what they're doing. Yeah, you and I have dealt with it. I deal with it on Sunday mornings. People don't want to hear it. So it was going to be a tough sell anyway. But without these emblems of hope, other than the guys lower in the system, if you can zoom out, you can see stuff. But without these harbingers and these emblems of hope, it's really angering to Cub fans. And here's the thing, Danny. To me, it's like there's so much muscle memory of the franchise taking advantage of the fans for decades and decades and decades.
Oh, yeah.
That there is an assumption that that's what is going on right now and what is going on for years to come. I see that and hear that all the time, that, oh, no, they're just reaping the benefits right now. And they're going to do it again and do it again and do it again. And I don't believe they're going to do it again. They just spent a bunch. The payroll is still at 14. They've made a lot of mistakes here, but they're going to spend a ton again in the offseason. I think they're going to spend a lot. And they're not going to just sit back and take advantage of you for decades like your father's Cubs ownership did. But so many people believe that's going to be the case for years and years to come. It makes this thing a very tough and cynical spiral to experience for people.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case because, listen, you and I, I'll be as honest as I can be. Not every team in this town a huge fan of mine. I got a pretty good relationship with the people over there. Just through the years, we've had great conversations with executives on the air, off the air. Obviously, there's a business partnership with the radio station. You've seen both of us over there on Marquee. Like, you and I have good relationships with people over there. And that doesn't excuse any of it. It doesn't absolve them from some criticism that you and I have given them, right? Like, I remember how angry I was after the Darvish trade or the Schwarber non-tender. And, we talked plenty about Addison Russell or, Ricketts' father emails. Like, we've talked about all that stuff. So it's not about, like, cubby-colored glasses, but they are going to spend. I have no concern about that. But you're right. A huge percentage of the fan base. I don't know if it's 50%. I don't know if it's 30%. Like, I don't know what the number is, but it's not like a straw man of 2% of negative people on Twitter. There is a legitimate percentage of the Cubs fan base that believes that they launched a television network, they bought up the real estate, and now they're focused on soccer teams and pocketing profits. I can assure you that is not the case. Like, this team will spend to the top 5 and 6 in baseball in payroll again, be north of $200 million again, just like they were in 2016, 2017. Like, I firmly believe and know that is coming, but that doesn't make this any easier. because it sucks watching a team get its head kicked in every day.
Well, it would make it easier if people believed that. And there was always a belief that while they were rebuilding in 12, 13, and the first part of 14, that eventually they were going to spend. And we here at The Score, and Lord knows I specifically was very vocal in pointing out exactly what the Red Sox had done. Because that was they're like, okay, what they're going to do is they're going to build up all the stuff around the park and then use all that to help augment the spending. And when the kids are ready, you know what I mean? Like other teams had done that. We had that. And people had that to look at. And there was a belief in Theo, and there is not that belief in Jed. There just is not that belief. And Jed is not.
That confuses me.
Well, I don't think Jed is just, he's unfortunately for him, he's following one of the great explainers and orators in the history of that job, frankly. Theo had a way of calming people down, and he had the track record. And Jed's track record for a lot of people is that of being Theo's assistant. And he didn't get it done because he wasn't in San Diego long enough to get it done. So that's part of it. And then just the way that he said it, like there's people on the text lines now saying they lied to us. They told us they were going to be competitive. They were hoping to be competitive. They were hoping to be competitive and hoping it was going to work out.
Yeah,
and
but I tried my best,
out.
man. Remember we talked about this around opening day, and I gave you an impossible assignment, to try to sell me on positivity for the Cubs, and you did your best. But I tell you, man, look to Vegas. They might have said we're going to try to be competitive. This was supposed to be a 73-win team by the numbers.
Right. So I think people heard the way that Jed said it, or they heard that and they thought, no, they're going to really try and be competitive, and they'll be scrappy, and they'll see what they have.
He said on opening day that the offense could surprise some people. He was not hope trafficking on opening day. They might have at Cubs convention a little bit, but I did not feel like he was when he met with Dan and Layla at opening day at Wrigley Field.
Okay.
I remember that conversation. It was a good interview.
Do you think fans, and we can open it up if we want, I threw into 644-67-67. Danny, you think fans hope trafficked with themselves? You think certain people, I mean, was it me? Was it us?
I think it was confusing.
Yeah.
Maybe Theo would have done a little bit better of a job than Jed at explaining it, because like you said, he's one of the best in the history of any sport at explaining and articulating a vision, because it was confusing to see a team that should not be good spend on veterans and have Suzuki choose you and have Stroman choose you. And yeah, they've had some bad luck with injury, but a ton of teams have had injury. So I think it was confusing. But yeah, I think that some people said, well, we made those signings. The NL Central's bad.
Yes.
We weren't supposed to be non-competitive for a long period of time. So I assume that after the last year and a half of non-competitiveness, now's the time to be competitive. When if you looked at the roster, and in particular the pitching staff, there really was no indication that they were going to be competitive. There really wasn't.
And here's the thing. I know that I was guilty of it on some level, because spring and baseball is about that. And it plays on your heartstrings, and it opens itself up for you like a freaking flower in bloom there in April and May.
Yeah, I had none of that.
Yeah,
I went into this season with literally no expectations. I was begging you to get me into it, Beyonce, Suzuki, and my guy Kyle Hendricks.
And I certainly have been guilty at many times in my life, certainly when it comes to baseball, of hope trafficking with myself. And maybe some people in this town did that with themselves too, because it's baseball and you want it to be good and you want it to work out. But this season is so clearly and obviously not about winning on the big league level. It's just not. And when they do win, it's kind of a nice little sidelight, and that's fun. And when you do go and enjoy a ball game, it can feel good and feel enjoyable, but in the end, they're not good. They're just not. And it's not about your experience as a fan or our experience as fans as we watch it this year, because it's not about the win and the loss. It's why I've left more games early this year than I think I've ever left. When I go and I'm in my throes as a fan, as you know I can get. And
You've gone to a remarkable number of games as a fan for how bad the product is.
I have. Well, and I go because I enjoy it. I go to both sides because I enjoy it.
And your wife loves the Cubs.
And my wife absolutely loves it. But she's willing to leave before the end because the end is not the story. It's not the story right now. And they're lucky and they're fortunate that they have a place that people like to go to and they have a thing that people like to watch, even when the end is ugly. And some of that means that you just have to deal with the anger, and there's so much anger out there. But it's the assumption that this is going to go on for decades because it used to from people. That is wrong and informs the feelings a bit too much, in my opinion.
Before we get to some calls, here is Jed Hoyer, who spoke to the media for a long, long time today. I've got Marquee on in the background here, and they're airing his pregame media availability in full. It's been going for damn near 30 minutes. Here is Jed Hoyer addressing fans and the belief in the rebuild and the length of the rebuild.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that at all. I think trying to pretend that this current 9-game period has somehow changed that or alter that, I think would be the wrong thing. I don't know. I know what I have a vision to build. I know what we built last time, and I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to get there. But I also I'm aware that sometimes things speed up and sometimes things slow down, and I'm not smart enough to know which of those are going to happen. But I do know, and I have the ultimate confidence, I know we're going to be successful, just like I knew that same thing last time. And it doesn't make the day-to-day any easier. It doesn't. But, like I said, I have all the confidence in the world about, the quality of the team that we'll build.
It is something that is believed by him and not by the masses. And maybe that's Jed v. Theo. Maybe it is. I personally do have faith in Jed. I think it's a product of you saw it work. When you see it work, you have less patience the next time. Cubs fans would have waited if they were like, all right, it was 108 years, but you're going to win one at 115 years. Cubs fans would have signed on the dotted line. Because they go, well, then at least we will get the one. If there was a finite time at the end of it. But once you have it, and you win after it, and after it, and after it, divisions, playoff appearances, etc., 90-win campaigns, all that stuff, you're like, wait, what? Why can't it? Why now that we have the video boards and the buildings and the competent ownership that spends and the competent front office people, why can't we just do it every single year? And they were supposed to. And that's the thing, is that there are failures on the back end of the Theo regime that really sting and left a mark and left the farm system so barren that they've chosen to go this route, and they never wanted to go this route. They didn't want to be those teams that completely fell off the table and were terrible for a while. Remember Jed referencing those teams specifically? Yeah, what was it? It was a Phillies team.
Philly, Detroit. Yeah. Detroit after they got great and won, and then they were terrible for a long time. Philly after the Cliff Lee and Halladay years were terrible for a long time. They didn't want to be that. They wanted to take a step back like the Giants, take a step back like the Yankees in 2016, and then reload and do it again. So that's the idea here. And they'll be aggressive in the offseason trying to make this the 1 year. I absolutely believe that they're going to be super aggressive in the offseason, spend like crazy, and try to hit opening day next year without people thinking that this is a long-ass, barren rebuild where they're not prioritizing winning on the big league level again next year. They want this to be a 1 year breather like that.
Let's hear from some Cubs fans, see if they're buying in. We got some names on the board here. Kevin in Palatine.
Hey, he's not.
Hey, how are you?
What's up, Kevin?
Hey, guys, I appreciate you taking my call, and Speaks, I love you. Danny, I love you. But I don't believe a word either of you said. I am on the Bernstein train on this. I think Ricketts would love to be the Pirates. He wants all the money. And I've heard all the stories where he met his wife and all the money's going back in. I think Crane Kenny is a habitual liar. I don't believe a word. I'm insulted by every word Jed Hoyer said today. And I will never believe that Tom Ricketts is not shopping at Kohl's. He is not. He's Kohl's.
Then why isn't the payroll $80 million?
Right. Why bother to do Stroman and Suzuki, Kevin? Why bother?
Yeah, you know what it is? It's bad appetizers at a bad restaurant. That's middle tier. Why don't we have Manny Machado? Why don't we have Mookie Betts? Why don't we have the good players that cost the most money? Your tickets are the most expensive. You bought the whole neighborhood. You got your TV station.
Yeah.
Spend the money.
Will
the other thing that drives me insane.
Will you feel differently if they sign Xander Bogaerts or Trey Turner and give a $200 million contract to a shortstop this offseason?
Yeah. And if they buy a front line pitcher, none of this BS. None of Stroman's a 3. I want an ace. I want you Darvish back or someone that level.
Who they signed.
And they gave him away for nothing. And I'm just telling you, the Dodgers and the biggest indictment of this guy is when they were told by the greatest pitcher of this generation from the Dodgers that the Dodgers never would have done what the Cubs did by
When
just
Kershaw
giving up a
said
season
that.
and giving away.
I hear you, Kevin,
when
but
Kershaw said that,
I hear you, but think about what you're saying. Like, there's no reason to do Stroman or Suzuki at all if you just want to sit back and be the Pirates. So that doesn't track. And if next year, like Danny says, they have one of those shortstops, and they will have a free agent starting pitcher to add into the mix. If they have those two things, you're going to have to look at it and realize that it's not what you're saying, that he's committed to being the freaking Pirates. That's not what's going on. That's too cynical, Kevin. You've gone a little over the edge.
We appreciate the call, Kevin. No, we appreciate the call because there's more people on the board. But the other thing is, Speaks, and people don't want to hear this, the Dodgers are now the outlier. Like, the Dodgers signed that TV deal at the absolute perfect time.
That's absolutely true.
They signed it before Netflix blew up, before Apple got into the content space, before Hulu got into the content space, before cord cutting was a thing, and they get more money from local media than any other team in baseball will ever get again by a factor of like 5.
You know when the Cubs blew it, Danny? They blew it when they re-upped with GN, when they re-upped with WGN-TV. What is it, 2008, 2009? I'll have to look back and find
with NBC, right? Like,
yeah, but there was NBC was like they picked up the spillover. So when they re-upped their individual deals, and I've got it on file somewhere. When they did that, that's when they should have built themselves a network. That's when Yes was happening. It was just before the Dodgers did it. What the Cubs just did is, I just was reading an article in Crane's about it. It's might be the last one. It might be the last team-owned RSN to launch, because like a single team-owned RSN to launch, because that bubble has passed. There's still a lot of money in it, but nowhere near what the Dodgers have, what Yes Network brings, what the Phillies network brings. The Phillies beat them to it by about 6 or 8
years. It was a bad misstep to do at least one, maybe 2 extra deals before going out on their own, and they missed the true cash cow of it. That's not an excuse. That's just a fact, and that it was a mistake on the business side of it. But it was It took a lot of money out of their pockets compared to the Dodgers. It's just it's a fact.
There's plenty of missteps, and
that's a big one, though.
But there's plenty on the baseball side too. It's not. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason that they chose to do what they do is they waited too damn long. It's interesting. I see a texter. I see a texter saying, well, they showed they didn't want to spend with Baez and with Schwarber and with Bryant and with Rizzo. As we've said, the results on those guys show you that those decisions were right on the baseball side. They just waited too damn long to do it. And if they were going to do that, just trade those guys off, then they should have invested earlier. That they should have invested with Nick Castellanos. That is a huge screw up to me. is seeing that moment and being afraid to invest long-term in a hitter like Nick Castellanos, who was exactly what they needed because they were still flummoxed about what they were going to do with the core that was going to be expensive. And they ended up trading him away and not investing in any of those guys, which again looks right. But they blew that moment by not investing in Castellanos. So there's been mistakes for sure. And part of it is they fell too much in love with those core guys and didn't make their decision until way too late on those guys.
Elmhurst Steve is on Parkins Spiegel. What's up, Steve?
Good afternoon, fellas. You know, the thing that really irks me is I hold people to their word. And when the Cubs, went through their rebuild last time, 2012, 2013, we all heard, oh, this is going to be a little painful, but we've got a plan. And, okay, we went through it, and we were told that it was not going to happen again. Once they did this, you can expect sustained success. Those were the exact words that he used. And that was what we came to expect. We thought, okay, you know what? They go to NLCS 3 years in a row. They get in the playoffs, 5 years out of 6, something like that. And, you think this is the way it's supposed to be. I understand you don't sign Anthony Rizzo to a big, long contract, Baez and Bryant. There were good reasons why not to sign those 3 guys. But now you got all this money that you could allocate to somebody else. And who do they allocate some of it to? $100 million? Seiya Suzuki, a guy who is unproven at the major league level. And I understand he may turn out to be a good player, but it's just taken a huge chance. So it's very frustrating when you look at a team that tells you expect sustained success, and then they sell off the big-name players and don't replace them.
It's great to hear Elmhurst Steve's voice, longtime caller. Thanks
Steve.
for
the call, Steve.
And Danny, he's right. If Suzuki were healthy and performing, you'd be able to say, see, they know what they're doing. They're right about that guy, and they spent a lot of money on him.
But I'd rather have Seiya Suzuki than Javi Baez.
For the next 5 years, 100%.
And I'd rather have Seiya Suzuki than Anthony Rizzo.
I think I would too. Anthony Rizzo.
The guy's 27 years old with a bunch of tools, and you're not paying for past performance with him. Javi Baez is arguably the worst offensive player in baseball right now. The Cubs offered Anthony Rizzo way more money than he ultimately signed for.
Yeah.
Chris Bryant, who I wanted them to sign, and I would have signed him to the $180 million deal that he got in Colorado, even with the struggles, at the end with the Cubs, I would have done that deal. Early returns aren't great on that. I don't know, man. People wanted those guys to be signed because of sentimental reasons. They have not been good.
Yeah, the one, Schwarber's the one I wanted to keep, but his numbers look bad other than the power. Rizzo, I thought they were going to find a way. I really thought they were going to find a way, and I answered quickly when you said I'd rather have Suzuki than Rizzo. That's one that could be both. That ought to be both. Anthony Rizzo ought to be here as captain of the infield and helping things further, but that's on him. That one's not on them. That one's on him.
Yeah, they offered an overpay.
100%. And you see what he's able to get dollar-wise. He was dead wrong about what his value was. But if Suzuki were performing, and here's another problem. I think Nick Madrigal kind of stinks. And getting Hoyer being hurt, Cody Hoyer being hurt, so he's not there. And Madrigal being this bad and now hurt makes the trade of Kimbrel look like that's all you got for that asset. That was a serious asset at the deadline, man. And I worry that Madrigal is a big whiff because that's what it looked like from maybe the Sox perspective. And so far, it looks like a whiff from Jed's perspective. So that's a tough pill to swallow on that one.
Throw a little kerosene on the fire here.
Yeah.
Now that it's happened this way, they didn't want it to happen this way. Some of it was their mistake. Some of it is injury. We're here, right? We are now in the reality of only 3 teams have more losses than them. The rest of the way, it is absolutely in their best interest to lose as many games as possible, yes?
Now that we're here. This way? Yeah. Yeah,
like
sure.
the next 90-something games,
Yeah,
it is absolutely in the best interest of the Cubs for them to get one of the 3 worst records in the sport, to have the 16.5% chance at the top pick, get the best prospect you possibly can in the draft, and then still spend a ton this offseason. Like, we're here. They didn't want to be here. Playoffs expanded with the wild card. Bad luck with injury, whatever you want to say. Now that we're here, best path out of here is to lose games the rest of the 2022 season. It just is.
Except it's not football and it's not basketball where that number 1 pick impacts you right away.
But it doesn't impact you right away.
So that's why.
But it's a more valuable piece in your farm system who should get here sooner or has more trade value.
Yes. But
it still is the most valuable asset that you can acquire, and the most likely way to acquire it is by losing games.
I know, but it's just not as. This is why it's trickier. Is that it's not as advantageous to do it, so you shouldn't harm yourself for next year that much as you try and do that.
I'm not saying lose intentionally. I mean, how would they harm themselves for next year? This team stinks.
Yeah.
They're going to lose plenty of games. What's the harm for next year?
Well, obviously, no Wilson Contreras would harm you for next year. But Wilson,
he is gone, man.
Wilson is at a moment. Wilson is at a moment where he's going to get multiple years, whatever he gets. I know he will dream of getting JT Realmuto's money, which is 5 years and 115. The catcher, that's the last big catcher contract for the Phillies. I don't know if he's going to get that because people are going to be afraid to pay him because of the defense, some defensive liabilities which still exist there with Wilson, whether people want to admit that or not. But he's going to he'll get 3 years he'll get at least 3 years. This is his moment to do that. So you're going to miss out on that. You're going to miss out on that. You're going to have to go further backwards with that one.
He's gone.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Guys do not get this far, this close to free agency, and then just re-sign. You're like, well, it happened with, Bryce Harper? Or Strasburg. That was Strasburg.
No,
that's one.
Yeah.
He is gone.
And the truth is, in a baseball sense, I think they're ready to have a different kind of catcher than Wilson. And whether that will be a right idea long term or not, because of the offensive possibilities, I think they're ready to move on from that.
I do as well. Big sports night, big sports weekend. Want to weigh in on it. But also, big day at our radio station today. Big day. Want to comment on that? I'm off tomorrow, so we will circle around on a big story happening here. It's Parkins Spiegel on The Score.
Starting Monday, Mully and Haugh at a new time. Now getting you to work starting at 5:30 and going all the way to 10 a.m. Tom Thayer.
I would just like to understand the issue.
Someone on the Twitch, it was a while ago, has said that they're just not sure what the Cubs are doing. I think that that's fair. That you're not sure kind of where things stand. What is it that they're trying to accomplish? Well, I think that they're still in a bit of a teardown, but does that mean that you're not going to spend money on players that have earned it? If we look at, you can make the argument against giving the guys that were here money, and I'm pretty sure that the Cubs offered Rizzo more money than what he ended up getting. But with Contreras, and especially now that the DH is a thing in the National League, what are you better served by? Are you better served by having a player like that and knowing that that spot on the roster is taken care of, or flipping him at the trade deadline as you continue to try to start over? It's a wild thing, man. Like, to think about where the Cubs were and where they are. And thinking about, like, Cub fans maybe having to say goodbye again. Like, that, even though Jason Hayward has been a good Cub, a great defender, fantastic teammate, the offensive production is, like, completely tumbled. and people resent that he makes the salary that he makes. Jason Hayward will be a guy that when he comes back, like for the 10-year reunion in 2026, people are like, oh, man, I love me some Jason Hayward. But now they're like, get him on up out of here. But with Wilson Contreras, it's like, man, that's a good player. That's a good young player. Or young enough player. And like he said, I've been in this organization for 14 years. That's wild. I hope that he gets what he wants and Cubs fans get what they want. But I think what they want and what they deserve, quite frankly, is you should be competing. Are you going to do what it takes to compete? You're the Cubs, like the new Cubs. You don't need to be taking 5 years to burn it down and build it back up. I think you have a right to be jealous and look at the Yankees and go, well, hold on. And look at the Dodgers and be like, yeah, that's what I want. I want them to keep spending money. Oh, there's a great player that's available. Let's trade for him and then give them money.
Cub fans who are freaking out about Wilson Contreras being traded. I don't decode emojis as well as perhaps some of my younger brethren. His emojis that he put out, was it Instagram or was it Twitter?
This is Twitter.
Okay.
We have 4 emojis here to decode.
Ladies and gentlemen,
2 unique emojis. 4 total.
Okay, 4 total emojis. The order is important. The language barrier creates an opportunity to simply use the emojis to say what you're saying. And as always, the emojis let you be very vague about what you might actually mean and think, if anything at all.
Correct. So we have one plane.
Okay, we have a plane.
On the ascent.
Okay, a plane rising is the first emoji from Wilson Contreras.
The second emoji is a plane on the ascent.
So 2
still rising.
Okay, now
I don't know if this is 2 separate planes, if this is the same plane that's just rising twice.
Is he really just trying to put the takeoff into perspective here? Double takeoff.
We have a third plane on the descent.
Whoa. Those are all in a row.
Correct. And then the fourth plane also on the descent. So this could be 2 planes taking off and landing at the same time.
Okay.
Or this is just doubly ascent and then descent. So
okay, he's really trying to.
Different ways we can look at it.
He's trying to hammer home the arc, the narrative arc of the emoji storyline here.
So Wilson Contreras is either on the way out, or more presumably so.
Yes.
Wilson Contreras is headed on vacation.
On vacation.
Correct. Yeah. Which is where I tend to lean. He's just headed to maybe Jamaica or something like that.
Sure. Maybe he's going to go to Turks and Caicos.
Let me check his Instagram.
Yeah. See, there you go. Do a little social media decoding, and we'll try to figure it out. 4 emojis, but only 2 unique ones. Double takeoff, double landing. Could be Venezuela.
I think Wilson Contreras deleted his Instagram when he got caught DMing porn stars. I can't find him here.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he DM'd a couple porn stars.
That's a tough look.
Yeah. Especially for a married guy.
Margarita, horseshoe.
Yeah. 1 win away from Joakim Noah. Definitely not going to pay up or remember our margarita bet.
You know what? You know where you guys could have a margarita together is you could have it.
Torrey Hunter's barbecue restaurant.
That's exactly what I was looking for the name. For some reason, Torrey Hunter's name. That's exactly right. Where Torrey Hunter's not going to pay off the White Sox winning the division last year, you and Joe could go down to his restaurant, have Torrey Hunter barbecue on him, and have a margarita. You should be able to arrange all that travel, Mr. Rivers.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be a problem. I listen, he's already lost. I mean, he said Boston in 6. They cannot win in 6 games, my friend. But
So
no, trust me, I will.
You wouldn't give him Boston in 7? You wouldn't give him a margarita?
Of course I would. Of course I would. Listen, man. Even if the Warriors win, if Joakim Noah wants me to pick up the tab for us to have margaritas together, it'd be totally fine. It'd be a little surprising, given that he got $72 million from James Dolan to not play for the Knicks. It'd be a little surprising if he made me pick up the tab.
I just want to say, as a show of solidarity, I, too, am willing to take $72 million from James Dolan to not play for the Knicks. You know?
I'd even play for him.
Yeah, just like when Lonzo Ball was deciding not to run, in efforts to rehab the knee. And I, in solidarity, also agreed not to run, to cease running at that point. It's the kind of thing.
It's big of you.
Yeah,
that's very nice. I guess I gotta prepare the tweet to at Joakim Noah to remind him of the old margarita bet. If the Warriors close it out tonight, I'm sure he will be running to the mentions if and when the Warriors win the finals. But big news today.
Yeah, man.
At the Score. The two longest tenured hosts at this station joining forces, a lineup shift, time shift, no more solo shows, and we had two of them. Dan Bernstein and Laurence Holmes on Monday are the Bernstein and Holmes show from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mully and Haugh go from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Dustin Rhodes is going to do a little pregame show for Mully and Haugh at 5:30 a.m. So live and local still around the clock, but from 6A to 6P, it'll be Mully and Haugh, Bernstein and Holmes, into you and me. So two four-man transitions yet again, and Layla Wednesday remains. So it'll be Layla Rahimi with Dan Bernstein and Laurence on Wednesdays. Pretty exciting stuff, man. That is going to be a powerhouse show with Bernstein and Laurence together.
That's the way that the station exists in my mind from my earliest interactions as an intern in the 90s. Two-man morning show, two-person midday show, two-person afternoon show. Let's go. 4 hours for each, a little more for the morning. Those
and
guys
I am wrong already. Mully and Haugh are 5:30 to 10. Dustin is 5 to 5:30.
Right. I knew that, but you were on it. It's okay. So, yeah, Dustin's 5 to 5:30.
I'd like to get it right.
Well, those guys
feel free to correct me next time.
Okay, I will. But, if I do that, we'll be here all day. Those guys do 4.5 hours. But seriously, the morning guys with the heavy lift, man, 4.5 hours. And then Bernsey and Holmes, I think it's great. I mean, those guys have known each other forever, obviously have a fabulous chemistry together. And at the same time, there's going to be, I don't want to say growing pains, but the adjustment period of two well-schooled monologuists working out the partnership. That's the kind of inside radio stuff that you and I love to hear, and I think a lot of the listeners love to hear that stuff too, even when it's awkward. People listen to you and me, Danny, when we went through it in our first few months. They're not going to have...
this won't be that.
This won't be that, but there will be some adjustment as they feel each other out. It's like, well, how long can I go on this topic that I want to? And you got my back here? Like, do I have your back here? Like, how that stuff is going to work is going to be a fun extra level to listen to. For radio dorks, and I think there's a lot of them among our listeners. It's a great move for the station, and I'm super excited for our transitions. We get to transition with Bernsey again now. With Bernsey
I know.
and
I've loved our talks with Laurence, and they will continue. But I miss talking with Dan, man. He's one of my favorite people at the station. He's still, for my money, the most talented person at the station. It's very, very cool that we'll be able to do the four-man midday to afternoon transition again. And no, you're right. I was texting with Laurence a little bit about it because I congratulated him, obviously, because it's a 4-hour show and he's working with Dan. It's an amazing thing. But I asked him, I'm like, how long have you been doing the solo lift? It's been 13 years since he had a full-time radio partner. 13 years, man.
Wow. Yeah,
that's a long time of doing solo radio, and he's very, very good at it.
Oh, for sure.
I'll obviously, I'm not gonna. He'll comment plenty on what it attracted him to the job and the opportunity and the partner and all of that. But you're right. Dan had been doing a good solo show. You know that I love solo radio, but it's a different thing doing it with a partner and having that tap dance. And those two guys, man, that's what. Well over 40 years combined of radio experience at this radio station. It's pretty awesome.
It's going to be tremendous. And Laurence and I worked together for, I think, 5 months at one point. So I was probably his longest partnership in that 13 years. But he's got the podcast, too. He's got House of L, so he'll get the solo feels that way. I think it's just going to be absolutely great for the listeners, great for the radio station, and I'm thrilled with the move and thrilled for both those guys.
Yeah, so that all starts Mondays. Mully and Haugh, morning show still begins at 5 a.m. Dustin 5 to 5:30, Mully and Haugh 5:30 to 10, Bernstein and Holmes 10 to noon. They got to do the double transition. Do Bernstein and Holmes got to do transition at like 9:40 and then come on with us until like 2:20? So is it like a 4-hour, 40-minute midday show? How's this going to work?
I don't know. That's not our problem. All right.
It really isn't. God, afternoons is great. Get some Cubs day game shorties. Get some morning golf. Get some help with the transition to start the show. God, who's got it better than us?
Nobody.
That's what I'm talking about.
Take it from the Harbaughs. Absolutely.
Have a good one tomorrow, man. I'm off to Louisville for a quick bachelor party.
Enjoy your selfish Father's Day weekend. And then on Sunday, when I'm doing Cubs pre-post in the 5th, I will enjoy my selfish Father's Day weekend. So, we'll reconvene Monday and talk all about it.
We'll talk about us. We'll talk about being some bad dads together. Sounds great.
We'll make each other feel better about it on Monday. Look forward.
That's great. Callahan, man, you did an awesome job. Thank you so much for your help today. Ray Diaz, I assume you were around there earlier. I know you were. Connor O'Donnell, Twitch chat and video stream. Thank you, sir. Tanny and Speaks back tomorrow. For Matt Spiegel, I'm Danny Parkins. Bears All Access coming up then. Hub Arkish at 7 o'clock. It's Parkins and Spiegel on the Score.
This isn't part of the program. This is impromptu by me. I'm sorry about this afternoon. Please, everyone be quiet. Let me just say, it's unacceptable. Today was unacceptable.
Breaking score news starting Monday. Some of your favorite score shows have new showtimes. Our starting lineup kicks off your morning with Mully and Haugh at a new time. Now getting you to work starting at 5:30 and going all the way to 10 a.m. Followed by the newest mashup